You wake up and your whole body is on fire. Your throat feels like it's lined with sand. Your legs won't hold your weight. There is no clinic down the road, no pharmacy, no app to book a same day appointment. For most of human history, when your body failed you, this was it. This was the whole system. Just you and the people around you. It sounds like a death sentence. So, how did anyone survive? Somewhere in the Zagros mountains of northern Iraq, there's a cave called Shanidar. In the 1950s and 60s, an archaeologist named Ralph Solecki began excavating there, and what he found changed how we think about sickness in the ancient world. Buried in the sediment were the remains of several Neanderthals. One of them, now known as Shanidar I, had been through more than almost anyone alive today could survive without modern medicine. His skeleton tells a brutal story. A crushing blow to the skull that likely left him blind in one eye. A withered, partially amputated arm. Damage to his leg that would have made walking painful, maybe impossible for stretches of time. And yet, he lived for years after these injuries. Years. In a world with no antibiotics, no surgery, no painkillers. How does a one armed, half blind man with a bad leg survive for years in the Ice Age? He doesn't. Not alone. Somebody fed him when he couldn't hunt. Somebody helped him move when his leg gave out. Somebody kept him alive, on purpose, for years with nothing to gain from it except keeping him alive. That's not an accident. That's care. That's what researchers now call the bioarchaeology of care, a field pioneered by scholars like Lorna Tilley, who study skeletons for exactly this kind of evidence. Not just how someone died, how they were kept alive despite everything working against them. Shanidar isn't the only site that shows this pattern. In Vietnam, at a site called Man Bac, archaeologists uncovered the skeleton of a young man who had been paralyzed from the waist down, likely from childhood, due to a condition affecting his muscles and bones. He should not have survived infancy. Instead, the evidence shows he lived into his 20s. Someone carried him, someone fed him, someone turned him to prevent the kind of sores that come from lying still too long. For over a decade, an entire community organized itself, in part, around keeping one fragile person alive. Sickness in the ancient world wasn't just a private battle fought alone in a bed with the lights off. It was a group project. But care wasn't just about comfort. Ancient humans, and even the Neanderthals before them, appear to have understood something about medicine itself. In 2012, a researcher named Karen Hardy led a study examining dental calculus, the hardened plaque that builds up on teeth over a lifetime. From Neanderthal remains found at a site called El Cidrón in Spain. Trapped inside that ancient plaque were microscopic traces of plants, including chamomile and yarrow. Both plants taste bitter. Neither one offers much nutrition, but both have been used for thousands of years afterward across countless cultures to settle upset stomachs and reduce inflammation. Why would a Neanderthal choose something bitter and useless as food unless they already understood on some level that it made them feel better? This wasn't guesswork passed down by accident. This was observation repeated across generations, refined into something closer to knowledge. A kind of medicine that existed tens of thousands of years before anyone wrote a word down. So picture it. Picture a small band, maybe 20 or 30 people, moving together across a cold open landscape. One morning, someone doesn't get up. Their skin is hot, their breathing is shallow, the group doesn't panic, and they don't leave. Someone who has done this before, an elder, maybe, someone who has watched people get sick and recover, or sick and die many times, kneels down beside them. They press a hand to the forehead. They send someone to find bark from a particular tree, or a bitter root, or the right kind of leaves. They build the fire a little closer. They stay. There is no separation here between doctor and family, between treatment and comfort. The person holding your hand is the same person who knows which plant might ease the fever. Sickness pulls the whole group inward, not apart. Here's the part that should stop you. We tend to imagine prehistoric life as a brutal filter, where anyone weak, sick, or injured was left behind. A harsh test that only the strongest passed. Survival of the fittest, in the coldest possible sense. But the evidence keeps pointing somewhere else entirely. Shanidar I survived catastrophic injuries for years. The young man at Man Bac survived over a decade with a disability that should have killed him in infancy. These weren't people who happened to slip through the cracks of a brutal system. They were kept alive by a system built, in part, around not leaving people behind. Being sick or injured in the ancient world didn't automatically mean abandonment. Sometimes it meant the opposite. It meant becoming the center of the group's attention, the reason everyone else adjusted their pace, their plans, their food, and that changes what survival of the fittest actually meant for early humans. Fitness wasn't only about individual strength, it was about the strength of the bonds around you. A band that cared for its sick and injured, held on to knowledge, onto relationships, onto people who might recover and contribute again. Compassion wasn't a luxury layered on top of survival. For much of human history, compassion was survival. Now think about what happens when you get sick today. You probably don't tell your neighbors. You might not even tell your coworkers beyond a short message that you won't be in. You take something over the counter, you close the blinds, and you wait it out alone in a room, maybe with your phone for company. Getting sick in the modern world is often one of the loneliest experiences a person has, precisely because everything around us is built for independence. Your apartment doesn't require anyone to feed you. Your job doesn't require anyone to check on you. Your recovery can happen entirely out of sight, unwitnessed, unattended, and no one would ever know unless you told them. That's not how your body evolved to expect sickness to go. For hundreds of thousands of years, being sick meant being surrounded. It meant hands on your forehead, bitter leaves pressed into your mouth, someone deciding to stay instead of move on. Your nervous system, your stress response, the parts of you that decide whether you feel safe or afraid, were shaped in a world where illness triggered closeness, not isolation. Maybe that's why being sick alone can feel worse than the sickness itself. Maybe some old buried part of you is still waiting for someone to kneel down beside the fire. You wake up and your whole body is on fire. Your throat feels raw, your legs won't hold your weight. But this time, imagine someone else in the room, someone who has done this before, someone who isn't going anywhere. For nearly all of human history, that presence wasn't a luxury. It was the only medicine that ever really worked.